All right, fire 'em up!
We haven't seen each other in a while. So, to mark the occasion, I guess I ought to say something poignant, something special to mark the occasion. Eggs cost way too damn much right now. Yeah, that's all I got. What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Alexander, the voice in the void, the lone wolf, your favorite host with a lisp. How the hell are you? Welcome back to the Twee'quel podcast. It's been a while, and that is really not my fault, except it is kind of my fault. We've been gone for a minute. It was never supposed to be that long of a layoff. I was supposed to be back at the end of January. That was the idea, to start back up at the end of January. But in the hectic day-to-day life of moving everything around, we wound up breaking our camera, and I had to wait for the new one. And when we got the new one, I didn't like it. I didn't like how it operates. I didn't like the resolution of it all. So we decided to just get the old camera, just get an exact replica of the old one. And we had to wait for it because obviously it was old. And we just had to find one, and we had to wait for it to get here. But now we have it. We're back. We're back to doing our thing. We're going to be back to doing this on a weekly basis every Saturday. Again, yes, I know it's not Saturday, but that's a whole different story again. And we are going to streamline the process for the podcast. All the movie reviews will have their separate videos. They will just be their own thing, and the podcast will be a bunch of other things put together, and you'll see as we go out through this episode. But I'm so happy to be back. I'm glad that you all decided to hang with me for a little while I do this. We got a ton of news to go through, and then we are going to talk about that Fantastic Four trailer. I'm gonna give you the top 5 Easter eggs that I saw from it, which we were supposed to do right after the trailer dropped in the first place, but we didn't get around to it for obvious reasons. But yeah, I'm gonna give you my top 5 Easter eggs in it, and a few theories that I think that are going to be in the movie coming up. And just make sure that you tune into the podcast. If this is your first time, make sure that you follow and like and subscribe and do all the things that the algorithm likes. And again, if you've been doing this for a while and been rocking with us, thank you very much for tuning back in. Like I said, we got a lot of news to get through, and we're gonna be talking about that Fantastic Four trailer. And we actually are going to be talking about those words that Anthony Mackie said about his new film, which actually debuted yesterday. Captain America: Brave New World. The movie isn't doing too well from what I hear. I haven't actually gone to see it yet. I will be going to see it, and we will be reviewing it. But for right now, let's get right into the news. So we're going to kick off today's news by saying rest in peace to Irv Gotti, whose real name is actually Irving Lorenzo. He was passed back on the 5th of February earlier this month. Hasn't been what was said that he passed away from, but they are saying that it could have been a secondary stroke that he had from another one that he actually had sometime last year. He is survived by a couple of children who actually posted on Instagram when he did pass away. The man founded Murder Inc., which was later renamed The Inc. when they started signing artists. Oddly enough, like Vanessa Carlton. Yeah, that Vanessa Carlton. He once helped different artists get on their feet and get their careers started. He found Ja Rule and Ashanti, and obviously their careers skyrocketed on Murder Inc. But he's actually also credited with helping get the careers for Jay-Z, DMX, and Lloyd started as well. Oddly enough, those are gigantic artists that nobody actually considers him to be linked with. So the fact that he is credited with helping them get their career started and helping them get into the music game, thumbs up for him. He was only 54 years old. At the box office, January was pretty much a horrible month. Now, yes, the money that they made through January at the box office was up just about 12% over this time last year. All of the movies that are really anchoring January and into February, those movies actually came out in November and December. Movies like Mufasa, Sonic 3, Moana 2, Nosferatu, and Wicked. Those are your top 5 movies that went through January while we were off. But like I said, none of those movies came out in January. All those movies came out last year at the end of November and in December. Now, all of the movies that came out in January are tracking to lose money, except for one, and that's Wolfman. Now, we did a review. There'll be a link somewhere around on the screen for you to check out the review that we did for Wolfman. It is a really good movie. You might have to watch it twice in order to understand where they're going, because it's not your typical horror movie. And honestly, in my opinion, it's not a horror movie at all, but you'll understand that once you watch the review. Thus far, all of the movies that actually debuted in January of 2025, they are about to lose money, except for Wolfman. And I don't know how January is going to be looked at through the course of the year, but let's see what happens throughout 2025. And debuting today, debuting day before yesterday actually, was Brave New World, Captain America. So I can't wait to go see that. And I'm going to double back to the movies theaters and see Love Hurts. That is the movie starring Kiwi Kwan. I can't wait to actually see that one. I thought that movie was debuting later this year, but it actually came out in February. So now that the movie's out, I'm going to go see it, and we are going to review both of those probably next week. So just make sure you tune into the channel to see both of those reviews. Never mind the fact that he's playing Captain America, but you just gotta love Anthony Mackie, because the man knows how to stir up controversy and to make sure that you are talking about him no matter what. Now, at some point during one of the interviews in the lead up to Captain America Brave New World coming out, he had a few choice words about Captain America in general. And oddly enough, it got him into a whole lot of trouble with the left wing, a bunch of conservatives. But honestly, nothing he said was wrong. Well, what did he say? Well, don't worry about it. We're gonna go over all his comments, and I'm gonna tell you exactly why he was right after the news. In the acting world, a bunch of old faces are getting a bunch of new roles going forward, and I got a feeling a whole bunch of people are not going to like it. So it has been reported that Jared Leto will be Skeletor in the new Masters of the Universe film. It is live action. Now, if you don't know what Masters of the Universe is, it's He-Man. Tons of people don't understand that He-Man and Masters of the Universe are the same thing. So just in case you didn't know, there you go. But yeah, Jared Leto is going to be Skeletor in this new live action film. A lot of people are not going to like that. I still believe that man can actually act. Never mind his singing career, because his band is actually fantastic. If you didn't know he was in the band, go look it up. But he is going to be Skeletor. A whole lot of people are not going to like it, and I believe that it's not him that made Morbius bad. I don't believe it's him that made his role as Joker bad. Now, you got to remember, he didn't write the role, he didn't direct the role, he didn't say, hey, play this character this way. All he does is show up, say, hey, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to play this? And they tell him what to do. And if you don't like it, then that's the thing with writing, and that's the thing with director. As far as him, he's actually really good at what he does. So the fact that he's going to be Skeletor, I think this is going to be the role that turns him around. He has very good comedic timing. Just look how he played the Joker, and he's really good at drama. Look how he played Morbius, and look at all the other roles he's been in. He's really good at doing those two things, and Skeletor has a lot of comedic timing wrapped in the role with a lot of the things that he says. So the fact that he's playing Skeletor, I think this is going to be the role that finally gets people off of his back. Now, the other old face in the new role is going to be Jason Momoa playing Lobo in the new DCU under James Gunn. Now, look, a lot of people are pissed about this. When James Gunn took over, there was word that everybody in the old regime is going to be out. They're not going to reuse actors. They're not going to reuse roles. They're not going to redo anything. And it seemed like that was going to be the case, except for the fact Jason Momoa is the one that's going to wind up coming back, but this time in a new role. I think he's going to kill it. I was okay with his role as Aquaman. He was decent in it. I didn't think it was all his role. Him specifically was all that great. He just didn't quite feel like Aquaman to me. Aquaman is a bit more, a bit more serious, and almost overly serious in a lot of cases when you do see him. But the fact that you get him playing this, if you look at Jason Momoa playing Aquaman, that's actually kind of how Lobo acts. If you read comics and look at some of the times he's been in cartoons, that's the Lobo that we're going to get. I'm all for it. So those two guys in these two new roles, I think they're going to kill it. I know most DC fans aren't going to like it because they are Snyderites and they just believe that Snyder can do no wrong. But I believe James Gunn picked the right two people for these right two roles, and I'm going to cross my fingers that they kill it in theaters when those movies do debut. In the time we've been away, we've got a lot of brand new trailers for a lot of new films coming out, and believe me, they are all looking really good. So we got a trailer for Jurassic World Thunderbolts. We got a new trailer for Superman, which is going to look fantastic. To me, Superman is looking really good. Nice little Silver Era age type of Superman in this film. We also got a trailer for the last iteration of the Mission Impossible. It's going to be called Final Reckoning. And honestly, I think this is going to be the best one that they ever do. Just look at that trailer if you have not watched it. Actually, stick around on the channel, and there will be a video of all of the biggest trailers from the Super Bowl going back a couple of weeks, and you'll probably see it on there. But the biggest trailer we got was the one for the teaser for Fantastic Four. That trailer is everything I wanted when they described what Fantastic Four was going to be, a 1960s alternate future era kind of aesthetic, and to look at it, and to see the trailer and to see how they're doing it, I think Fantastic Four is going to be phenomenal. I don't care what anybody says. And there are a few things I saw in it, Easter eggs. Like I said, we're going to talk about that later on in the show. But there are also a couple of theories when I talk about those Easter eggs, because there are a couple of things that I noticed that I don't think a lot of people are even looking at or even talking about. And if you've heard somebody say these things after I tell you, then you come back in the comments and let me know that, yeah, hey, say if somebody else saw it too, and give me a thumbs up or a heart and let me know that it's real. But all those films, all of those trailers, they will be on the channel at some time, probably today or tomorrow, but just make sure you stick around to see them. So while we were gone, I didn't get a chance to talk about the TikTok ban, or the TikTok ban that was supposed to be, that really only lasted about 17 hours. So according to what everybody was saying, TikTok was supposed to be banned and not be in the United States going forward, but that ban literally took about 17 hours. I was right there when it went down at about, I would say about 11 o'clock that Saturday. It was the same Saturday my Lions lost, but we're not going to talk about that. But it was back up and back running at about 7 o'clock the next day on that Sunday. And the whole thing with the ban, to me, like I said before, it was hogwash. It's not a Chinese app. They aren't tracking us. The people that do track and sell our information, they're all American. And guess what? It's on every social media app. Every social media app, I don't even care if it's Amazon, they track you. They track your information so they know how to sell to you, know how to market to you. And that's just the case. To me, this was a big hoax. This was a big thing for them to take something away and give it back to you, and to seem like they're doing you a favor or doing something for you to get you on their side. And when by there, you know exactly who I'm talking about, but we're not going to get into that because that's politics, and we'll save that for another episode. But yeah, that TikTok ban was a bunch of bullshit. You know it, and I know it. It's been roughly, I want to say about 13 to 14 days, almost 2 weeks pretty much, that the Sony servers went down in the middle of gaming on a Saturday. Now, Sony has said that the problem with the servers was just an internal clock error. But to me, it doesn't matter why they went down. It's something that Sony needs to get under control, because this is not the first time that Sony has done this. Now, Sony has said that everybody that was affected, and believe me, it was quite a few, because this wasn't localized to the United States. This was worldwide. They said they're going to get 5 days free of PlayStation Network. But for me, that's not enough. I would say you need to give out a month free of PlayStation Network to everybody that was affected. Like I said, that was a lot of people. But for me, honestly, the missing time in gaming isn't the problem. The problem is so much of gaming is online, and you have to be online to do it. And these are the type of problems that can be avoided if they go back to the old model of making video games. Just take a disc, put it on the disc, sell the disc, call it a day. Live service games don't need to be a thing anymore. That's just my opinion, and we'll leave it at that. Speaking of video games, I'm wondering if I'm the only person that remembers that SAG-AFTRA is still on strike. Now, no, it's not the actors, it's not the directors, it's not the writers. SAG-AFTRA is on strike in honor and in solidarity with voice actors for video games inside of their industry. And I don't think people realize that strike has been going on since July 2024. That's why so many video games now, you see, they don't have dialogue lines, or they repeat the same dialogue lines over and over with the few lines that they have. And you will have the subtitles at the bottom reading out the lines, or just showing you the lines that there are no voice actors for. Now, the whole point of the strike is that they don't want voice actors, I should say, they don't want AI replacing them. So they want protections against AI, just like the actors and just like the writers did. Now, it doesn't seem like the video game industry wants to negotiate with them, which is why you still have the strike going on. Like I said, it started back in July of 2024 and it's still going strong. I am going to do everything I can to get more information and bring it to you, but I can tell you this: as time goes on, there are going to be more video games that release this year that's going to have minimal, and I mean a very minimal, dialogue, and that's when it's going to start being a problem. If you want to help them out, if you want to help voice actors out, this is what I want you to do. Don't buy any other video games. Yeah, I know, if you're like me, you got plenty of old video games that you can double back to and play for right now. But going forward, until they get protections against AI and it's concrete that they're not going to use AI for video games, stop buying video games. That's really the only way to hurt these people, and really the only way to get them to listen. So this is just my opinion, and I might be wrong, but there are way too many airplane crashes over the past month or so. We've had 3 in 1 week at the end of January going into February, and I don't understand why we have that many. You had the plane collision between a passenger airline and a military craft. I want to say that was just outside of D.C. You had another small craft that crashed into a neighborhood in Philadelphia. Then you had the airplane fire while the plane was getting ready to take off right on the tarmac down in Houston. These are things that can be avoided if we had more safety regulations or just enforce the regulations that we do have, more training. But the problem is we now have a regime in the White House and across the Senate and even in the all of the other offices that have to do with the aviation, like the FAA and even the Supreme Court, that are leaning toward less regulation, less safety regulations, because they want their friends who run these airline companies that run the airlines and build the planes. They want them to make money. So less regulations and less safety regulations mean that their bottom line is healthier because they don't have to follow all of these rules and spend money to do so. Now, for me, that's not a good idea. And as somebody who likes to fly now, I don't think I'm going to be doing a whole lot of it going into the future. Start have to looking at Amtrak. I used to like taking trains when I was younger, so maybe I'll go back to doing that a little bit more. If you're into comic books like I am, we got a ton of new comic books out right now, like Absolute Batman #5. If you have not started reading that, you need to. It is fantastic thus far. We got One World Under Doom #1 that just came out a few days ago. It's all about Doom. I think a little bit in this story is going to lead into everything that's happening in the MCU right now, even though they are adapting an older comic book storyline. But I got a feeling some of the stuff in this is going to allude to what's going on in the MCU, so I'm going to read up on that just in case it does. But the one comic book that has come out in the past month that I have yet to go get, I haven't had time to go get it, but I am going to go get it and read it. Silverhawks. If you don't know what Silverhawks is, it is one of the most underrated cartoon series ever, and they're bringing it back to life and bringing it back to the forefront in comic form. Please, I'm telling you, you need to read it. And if you have not ever watched the cartoon, all the episodes are on YouTube. You can go watch it for free. It is a really, really good cartoon, and especially the fact that I'm trying my best to write a script for a live action movie for the Silverhawks. You definitely need to read it, so when my movie comes out, you'll be up to date on what's supposed to happen in the series. So we should end our news section this week by saying congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles for winning the Super Bowl and stopping the evil empire known as the Kansas City Chiefs from shoving Taylor Swift down our throat for one more year. Thank God the Philadelphia Eagles won, because Lord knows what would have happened had they won and Kelsey would have brought Taylor Swift out on the field. We kind of all figured he was going to ask her to marry her right there, and nobody wanted to see that. I don't even think Swifties wanted to see that, but that's a whole different story. Shout out to them. I'm so happy for them. If it wasn't going to be my Lions, who lost in the first round to the Washington Commanders, which I am still hurt by that. If it wasn't going to be us, honestly, Philadelphia would have been my second choice to see win the Super Bowl, and they did. I'm so happy for them. I am the person who predicted that the Lions would win the Super Bowl, but I did say by the end of 2026. So we got one more Super Bowl for them to get in there and make my prediction correct. And I still believe the Lions are on track to win a Super Bowl at some point in the near future. I'm never going to give up on that. But again, congratulations to them. And congratulations to Kendrick Lamar for winning 5 Grammys at the awards show not too long ago. I'm not a big fan of award shows. I've said that before, but it's Kendrick Lamar, and anything he does to really piss on Drake is just a good day for me, especially that Super Bowl performance. I don't care what nobody says. That was one of the better ones we've had over the past decade. But, a whole lot of people are going to say it wasn't because they don't understand the message in the show that he did, but that's them. But again, congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles, and congratulations to Kendrick Lamar. So that's all of our news for now. Don't forget to check our Instagram page at @the_Twee'quel_pod. It's just random videos and random things that I post over there to do for you to look at and to check into when I'm not doing the podcast. And I'm pretty sure you'll find something to make you laugh or get you through your work week. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will be talking about Anthony Mackie's words about what Captain America is and what Captain America isn't. I've said quite a few things about comic book movies over the years since they exploded onto the scene in the MCU. And although the MCU is credited with bringing the comic book film craze to the masses, we've had comic book movies before then. But one thing I've said for sure is that comic book movies are not made for comic book readers. They aren't. The films themselves are made for people who have never picked up a comic book, which is why most of the comic book stories are chopped up, diluted, and watered down for mass consumption. That's just the end of it. If you don't seem to understand that, trust me, Read comic books and then go look at most of the comic book movies that have been in the MCU, the DCU, DCEU, and look at all of the other ones outside of those two companies that have been made. Most of the stories do not follow comic book movies. And I've said this also, that most people who watch comic book movies have never read a comic book. They do not know or understand the motivations of the characters that inhabit them. If you've never read a comic book and you try to judge the characters based on the films, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be wrong. A lot of what shows up in film, again, is just a watered down version of what's in comic books. Why? Because you don't have time to build a character up in movies like you do in comic books. Comic books are week to week, 1-to-1. And over the course of these comic books coming out, over the course of years, decades even, you get to see a character change, grow, and become icons in their specific series. One of those characters, obviously, as of late, has been Captain America. Yes, Chris Evans brought that character to life on screen, and he seems to be a very one-to-one representation of what's in the comic book. But at the same time, he's not. Chris Evans did a wonderful job of giving us Captain America, but there's a lot of nuance to Captain America from the comic books that we do not get in the films. Fast forward, Chris Evans has retired. He's no longer Captain America. And even in the movies, just like in the comic books, he has passed the shield to Anthony Mackie, who is playing Sam Wilson. Sam Wilson was the Falcon, and he's now Captain America. That has pissed off a lot of people. And one of the things that has pissed off a lot of people is simply because Sam Wilson's version of Captain America understands that America more than anybody. He understands that America has not lived up to the dream that it was supposed to be. Yes, they have trampled over the natives. They have enslaved black people and done so many other horrific things in order to make this country. But it is our country no matter what anybody else says, or at least it's our country also. And while this country stands and while Captain America is a part of this country, one thing Captain America has never been is a representation of what America is. He has always been a representation of what America should become. Anthony Mackie got in trouble for basically trying to explain this. Didn't explain it so well, but he got in trouble because of a bunch of comments that he made trying to explain this very fact. In fact, his comment says, quote, Captain America represents a lot of different things, and I don't think the term America should be one of those representations. It's about a man, he keeps on saying, who keeps his word, who has honor, dignity, and integrity. And later on, he added, Captain America is someone who is trustworthy and dependable. Those words are absolutely true. If you don't seem to understand that, then you're telling me you've never read a Captain America comic, especially the older ones. And I'm not talking about the 90s. I mean, going back to his origin all the way up until the 90s. Really, Captain America, like I said, has always stood for looking at America for what it is at that moment and saying, hey, we can do better than this. We can be better than this. And the thing about it is that Chris Evans uttered these exact same words, or at least he uttered basically the exact same feeling when he was playing Captain America, and nobody gave him criticism. Don't believe me? This is what Chris Evans said about his time as Captain America. Chris Evans' quote says, well, to me, I'm not trying to get too lost in the America side of it. This isn't a flag-waving movie. It is red, white, and blue, but it just so happens the character was created in America during wartime, when there was a common enemy, even though it is Captain America. I've said it before in interviews, it feels more like he should just be called Captain Good. You know, he was created at a time when there was undeniable evil, and this guy was kind of created to fight that evil. I think that everyone could agree that Nazis were bad, and he, Cap, just so happens to wear red, white, and blue. So you notice that everything that Chris Evans said when he was playing it and got no backlash mirrors almost word for word exactly what Anthony Mackie was getting across. But for some odd reason, he gets beat down for it. Truth of the matter is, there's only one reason he gets beat down for it. And we all kind of know what that is. But true to force, most people that are criticizing him, like I said, has never once ever read a Captain America comic book. All they can tell you is that his name is Steve Rogers. He was created by the United States in the Super Soldier Serum program, and that's just it. And he was made to fight Nazis, and he represents America. But the truth of the matter is even Captain America himself in the comics has said quite succinctly that he does not represent America. Don't believe me? Check out this panel. Straight from the horse's mouth, when pressed about being a really good soldier and representing America, Cap told the general directly to his face, "I'm loyal to nothing, General, except the dream." And if that one panel doesn't describe Captain America, here, try this second one. In this panel, for context, Cap was being pressed about what America is and what America should be become. And he got so angry, he went into a rant about what America is and how it needs to change, how it needs to be better. And he told them point blank, well, I say America is nothing. Without its ideals, its commitment to freedom of all men, America is a piece of trash. See, the problem with Anthony Mackie's comments is not the fact that he said them. It's the fact that people don't seem to understand just how honest and how true those statements really are. Again, I've said this from time to time, and I need to keep reiterating this. If you don't read comic books, don't go watch the movies thinking that you're going to learn something. The movies are just there for entertainment. Really, the movies are created for children and people who have never read a comic book, and the industry is trying to get those people to go buy comic books and read them. The movies aren't for people like me who have read comic books their entire life, who know these characters inside and out, who understand these characters. The movies aren't for me, but I can still sit there and enjoy them and say, hey, I know what story they're trying to tell. That was actually a really good story in the comic. Never mind the movie. The movie can be enjoyable, but here, go read the comic. The story is so much better. Those are what the movies are for. They're not there to inform you and to make you understand the characters. It's impossible. In a 2 or even a 3-hour movie, you cannot understand the nuance of characters that have been in creation for 60 plus years, sometimes 100. It's impossible. Do not watch the movies thinking you understand these characters and their motivations. You won't. Instead, do something that I do very quite often. Save up a couple dollars, head out to the comic book store, buy some books, sit down, read, and enjoy. The teaser trailer for Fantastic Four dropped, and believe me, it is just telling me that the MCU is going in the right direction. Whether or not you like every single film that is going to come out, believe me, the direction in which they're going it looks like it's going to be really good. It looks like they're going to do what I've been saying that the MCU needs to do. They need to disconnect the movies. Take each film, just do a film, do a really good story, do a really good movie about that one thing, and then move on. If you want to add in some connective tissue in the end, which is just like they did in phase 1, you can do an after credit scene, and then that'll be the only thing that connects all of these things, and then you can do a big team up movie down the line. Honestly, if they go back to that, the MCU will be just fine going well into the future, but we'll talk about that at a different time. But that trailer had a ton of Easter eggs in it, a lot of them, and a couple of them nobody really seems to be noticing because I don't see anybody online talking about it. So I'm going to give you my top 5 Easter eggs and a couple of theories within those Easter eggs that I really liked about watching that first Fantastic Four trailer. First up Easter egg is the title itself, Fantastic Four First Steps. Now, being told that this is not an origin story. Now, the director and the writer has said we're not doing an origin movie. Pretty much everybody from the 3 previous movies that we've had for the Fantastic Four, we all know how they got their powers. So he said going into this movie, this is not an origin story. But looking at some of the film, I want to say that the first steps is number 1 about them learning how to be heroes and to adopt to their celebrity while using their powers to be heroes. I think those are the first steps. But also, I think hidden within this trailer is the fact that there is a child that will be born to Reed and Sue in this film, and we're also going to see their first steps as parents, and maybe even the first steps of a child, of their child as he or she learns to walk. Now, in the comics, Reed and Sue has 2 children, Franklin and Valeria. Now, I don't think it'll be Valeria. I think going into the MCU, going where they're going with the end of the multiverse saga, and and Reed being very much a gigantic cog in that story, I think what we're going to get is Franklin Richards. Now, this is just a theory. I have nothing to go on other than what I see in the trailer, right? So while you're watching the trailer, go back and watch it again. The interview at the beginning when Reed is explaining to the interviewer while he and Sue are walking around their apartment that hey, we have family dinner right here, 7 o'clock every Sunday on the dot. Nobody's late. One of the things that you need to look at Sue as she's walking. She's walking straight up with her shoulders bent back, almost like she's too heavy to be walking around. And I've seen that walk before. I have 2 children. my wife walked like that when she was pregnant. And I think they digitally edited out a baby bump because Sue is pregnant with a child, and I believe that child will be Franklin Richards. Franklin Richards is a gigantic piece of the multiverse saga in the comics. When we had War World and the universe is coming to an end, Franklin Richards winds up being the mutant who can literally create universes out of his pocket, literal pocket universes. And he does that in service of his father to recreate the universes that got destroyed. That's in the comics. So I think they edited out the fact that she's pregnant in this film just for the trailer, and we're going to see that when the movie does come out. Like I said, I have nothing to go on other than my own eyes. That's what I saw. I have not seen anybody outside of myself and maybe one or two other people talk about this, and I am hoping that this is true, or I'm really going to look stupid. But I think that she's pregnant in this, and I think the child herself, I think the child is going to be Franklin Richards, and I think that they're going to wind up escaping away from Galactus, and I think the child is what brings Galactus to our planet inside of the film too. I think they are going to take the child and escape to a different universe because of Franklin's power in order to warn everybody else of what is coming and what could happen. Second Easter egg that I saw in this one is small, and honestly, for some people it's like, oh, well, that's not a big deal. But to me, it's a big deal, and I'll tell you why. The one thing we didn't see in this trailer, outside of not seeing the Silver Surfer, which is actually something else we're going to talk about in a minute, is we didn't see Reed use his powers. But I think that was edited out also. And I'll tell you when I think it was edited out. We saw Sue use hers. We saw Johnny do the flame on and jump off the balcony. We obviously see Ben Grimm as the Thing walking around in quite a few shots. We even see him running down the street full speed with his uniform on at some point in the trailer. But what we never saw was Reed use his stretching powers. But I think they edited that out too, just like they edited out Sue's baby bump. At one point, Reed is standing up next to a black chalkboard and he's writing. And it looks like half the chalkboard is blacked out and is blank. But Reed is writing, and he's an intellectual. So he would have started on the blacked out end and wrote going across the board, and then to come back and go across again. Or at the very least, go down, halfway stop, start another line, and use each board almost like a book with one sheet of paper here and one sheet of paper there. But half of it is blacked out. The side he should have started on was completely black. I think they edited out his stretching powers to save it and to save on the budget of the special effects, to really drive home just how it looks on screen when it happens for the first time when we see the film. I think Reed is actually writing down here with his stretched out hand and right here with another hand. And if you actually look at that board, he's writing out formulas and writing out computations to justify using a black hole or even a Penrose diagram in order to jump from one universe to another. There was a trailer, I want to say at New York Comic-Con, that wasn't shown to the public, where Reed himself is talking about black holes and being able to use them to go from one universe to another. And I think inside the film, Reed himself and the rest of the Fantastic Four are trying to figure out some way to use the black holes to go from one universe to another. And I think it's going to be them going back to the universe that they left. And in this universe where we see them in that setting, they came from another, they're heroes, and they are celebrities at the same time, which mirrors a lot of what happened inside of the comic books. Not exactly, but a lot of what happened. So the fact that half of that chalkboard is blacked out, I think that's a big clue to the fact that this universe in which the Fantastic Four that we see them in is not their original one. When they went up to space, got hit with those cosmic rays and got their powers, they also wound up shooting over to another universe in which they become celebrities and become heroes, and Reed is the smartest man on the planet, like he is in a lot of universes, and he's trying to help them find their way back home. So number 3 was that meteor shower we saw. The entire team is lined up on a balcony and they see these meteors coming, what looks like there's coming at them. Now that's two things from the comics that this could be. Now when Galactus does show up on any planet, there is a lot of atmospheric disturbances that go on whenever he shows up. Now that could be one thing that is happening. They're actually watching Galactus in his gigantic planet-eating and sometimes universe-eating form showing up within their vicinity, within the vicinity of the Earth that they inhabit at the time. But one of the things that it also could be, and we saw this in the last What If series, and we got a hint of it, I should say, is that this could be the Watcher trying to hide that planet, that version of planet Earth from Galactus so that this planet does not get destroyed. In that What If series, toward the end, Uatu is put on trial by the other Watchers for getting involved in the lives of some of these universes instead of letting them be destroyed, because he doesn't like the idea of watching so many people get killed. One of the Watchers that is putting him on trial tells him, hey, you are on trial because you've helped so many, you've gotten involved so many times, and we can't let this go on. When he says, well, I only helped Riri Williams that once, one of the Watchers actually looked down to him, and what about Reed Richards? In the comic, that is exactly what happened. Uatu, who is the one that is voiced by Jeffrey Wright in What If, he does in the comics help Reed Richards fight off Galactus by helping him find the ultimate nullifier. But the first thing he does is he tries to hide planet Earth by creating this gigantic vision of a meteor shower flying by the planet so that Galactus would not approach the planet. But they are found out because of the help of Silver Surfer, and he calls down Galactus, in which the Fantastic Four has to convince Galactus, not fight him, convince him to leave planet Earth alone. And they use the weapon called the Ultimate Nullifier to do so. That's from the comics. Go read it. It's a really good story. But I think, for me personally, I don't think that this is an atmospheric disturbance. I think this is Uatu from like it was said in the comics, and like it happened in the What If series, or as it was alluded to in the What If series, that Uatu is trying to hide planet Earth from Galactus. Because what if, no pun intended, that just like in the series, Uatu is trying to hide this planet Earth in order to keep Reed Richards alive, because he knows it's going to take Reed's intelligence and more than likely the power of their child, who is Franklin Richards, in order to battle what we have in the MCU, this version of Doom, which just like in the comics is the reason why we have War World and all of these universes dying. Because, and remember, Uatu doesn't want this to happen. He wants the universes to go on. So what if he's trying to hide this version of the Fantastic Four because they need that version of Reed Richards to help out whoever is left from the other universes, and just like What If, to stop the big bad from destroying the entire universe. I think that's going to happen in Fantastic Four and going forward to the end of the multiverse saga. Number 4, I think this was a small Easter egg, but I still think it was actually really, really cool. And it kind of alludes to something that Tony Stark said in earlier films when he was talking to Doctor Strange. So while the Fantastic Four trailer is going on, we wind up seeing all 4 of them standing on this platform on what looks like a TV show, because they have all of these arrows pointing in at their feet. Well, if you actually look at that and then look up records, photo records, that is the exact same stage that the Beatles themselves stood on the Ed Sullivan Show in their first show in the United States, which kicked off the revolution of the Beatles and so many other bands coming over from England and rock and roll and everything in the 60s. Well, that stage itself is an Easter egg, because if you go back to when Strange and Tony are talking to each other, Tony actually looks at Doctor Strange and says, "Hey, weren't you part of a band that was big in the '80s?" Well, actually, Strange said that to Tony. But that is an Easter egg from then up until now. But it is also because the Fantastic Four themselves in comics are seen as something of rock stars. So for them to stand them on the stage and use that same stage that the Beatles stand on, I think that was a pretty good Easter egg. And I appreciate them actually going into the comics and using that aesthetic of where, hey, these guys weren't just superheroes. They were rock stars. Everybody wanted to know them. Everybody wanted to be around them. We got a little bit of that in the first movie when Chris Evans is standing inside of the bar. Or one that might have been the second movie, where he's standing inside of the bar and he's doing fire tricks. And everybody's like, hey, you're supposed to be keeping low key. And he's like, no, we're rock stars. We should be using our powers like this. Well, that's an Easter egg from that movie to this one too, because you got to remember, those movies are actually kind of part of this universe as well, with Marvel and Disney buying Fox and everything else. But the fact that they use that stage itself with the arrows pointing into their feet, pretty good Easter egg in my book. And the final Easter egg is actually a twofer. So you actually get 6, not 5. But 2 things happened in the trailer that will lead into the next phase of the MCU, with not only mutants and the X-Men, and I'm not talking about the birth of Franklin Richards from my earlier point, but it's going to lead, in my opinion, into mutants and into the aesthetic of films being one-off, and then they'll have connective tissue with after credit scenes. One of the things we got to see is John Malkovich with a really long gray beard. Nobody knows who he's actually playing. It hasn't been said who he's playing. Now, one theory is that he's playing Mole Man, but Mole Man doesn't actually have a long beard like that. And the only reason people are saying Mole Man is at one of the conventions when they dropped the trailer, they also dropped a piece of merch, and I'll put it up on the screen if I can find it. And it has a picture of it, and on the picture of it, it's supposed to be a map of New York, of that specific Manhattan where the Fantastic Four is. And one of the things that it has on it is Subterranea, which is where Mole Man is from. And its point has an arrow pointing down. It's saying it's under New York City. Now, Subterranea, again, like I said, is where Mole Man is from. And that's one of the very early, very one-off villains for the Fantastic Four that they had to contend with. If you actually go look at the trailer that I have for Fantastic Four, you actually see Mole Man sitting on a diorama I have of the Fantastic Four fighting one of Mole Man's mud golems. So if you ever actually want to see it, I'll put a picture of it up at the end of the episode so you can see it as well. But we don't know who he's playing. So John Malkovich could either be playing Mole Man or he could be playing Ivan Kragoff, the Red Ghost. The Red Ghost was a very early Fantastic Four villain. He's a Soviet, obviously named Red Ghost, and he's a very 60s villain. He's trying to get to space and he's trying to beat the Americans for the pride of Mother Russia and all that type of jazz. And he looks much more like what John Malkovich looks like in the trailer. So if he is the Red Ghost, then that means there's a good chance that the Fantastic Four has beaten him, jailed him, but Reed is going to go to him for help at some point in the film. So it all depends on who John Malkovich is playing as to how he's going to be played in that trailer. So let's cross our fingers that he's playing, in my opinion, that he's playing a Red Ghost. I think having John Malkovich on screen for more than just a one-off battle, I think that's a hell of a lot more, that's a hell of a lot better than having him just be Mole Man and get beaten and he's off screen and gone. That'd be a waste of using John Malkovich, who is a very good trailer. But also right after that, I mean, literally right after seeing John Malkovich, we see Johnny doing his thing and flying off from what looks like some launch pad or off the top of a building, who knows, up toward outer space. And in the background of, as you see that fire streak up from Manhattan, there's this gigantic river, and it looks like it's snaking north, and that is the Hudson River. But what you're looking at from that wide view is the entirety of Westchester County. Well, maybe not the entirety, but a very good sizable piece of it. Up that river in Westchester County, you're going to find a mansion that is inhabited by the X-Men. So if, and this is a big if, that specific universe gets destroyed, which I said in my original look at the teaser trailer, if it's true that universe gets destroyed, then what we just saw is that universe should have mutants somewhere up in Westchester County being trained and being hidden away from the rest of society, which means that the mutants are already in the MCU. And I'm not talking about what happened at the end of the Marvels. Now, yes, that's a different universe, but within this universe, the mutants could also exist, which means there are other universes where mutants exist. And it's just really nice Easter egg to see that river snaking north goes all the way up to what should be Gray Malkin Lane and the X Mansion. And I think that was a pretty cool Easter egg to add in, even if they weren't trying to do it on purpose. So that's all of our Easter eggs. Did you see something that I didn't see? Just let me know in the comments. That's it for that. And when we come back, it'll be time for the last call. So that's it, and that's all. It's time for the last call. I want to thank each and every single one of you for tuning in and hanging out with me. You did not have to. You could be doing anything, but you decided to come and peep me out, and I truly appreciate that. I don't care if it's 1, 5, 10, 100, or 1,000 of you. Every single person that tunes into this podcast, I truly, truly appreciate it. We got a lot of stuff we're going to have to jump into next week. I don't want this episode running too long. I just wanted to get all of that stuff that we missed while the podcast was away and while we were retooling and getting our stuff set back up. But don't forget to check out everything coming up. We're going to have movie reviews, anime reviews. Obviously, we're going to be talking about every trailer that comes out this year, because there are some really, really good movies that are really coming out across the entirety of this year. And I want you and me to sit and talk about every single one of them. But for now, we're going to get out of here. I want you to take care of yourself. Remember to stay hydrated, drink your water. Don't do anything to hurt yourself. And remember, if you need somebody to talk to, there's always somebody there. Pick up your phone, dial or text 988. You are never alone. I promise you, you are not. And we shall end this episode the same way we end every episode. God bless. I love you, and peace. See you next time.